Doing?
I'm good, Randy. Good to see you, man.
Absolutely. Good to be seen. Really excited to have you here for our episode 108 of Tech Sales Insights. And seems like just yesterday we started this, huh?
It's phenomenal how far you've come, and kudos on your commitment to this community and all the great guests that you've had over the last 2-3 years now.
Yeah, a couple years, I guess, whatever, COVID. Anyway, so by way of formal introduction, David Nour, as he prefers to be called, is CEO of the Nour Group, and he's also at Emory University as a affiliate faculty for strategy, leadership, and innovation. I know he's very passionate about the work he does there at Emory. And today we're going to be covering a lot of topics, but you can see in the background over your, I guess, right shoulder, we're going to be getting some great insights from your new book, Relationship Economics, the third edition. And unlike some books that are just a reprint, yours is actually really rewritten. So for those that have the others, this one is still definitely worth getting for sure. And it's coming out, what is it, mid-February?
February 14th, Valentine's Day. Different kinds of relationships, but February
There you go.
14th.
All right. All right. I guess I know what Wendy's going to be getting wrapped, huh?
in a box of 10 of them.
Yeah. Just make sure it's a Tiffany light blue box.
There you go.
How good would that be? And we've got as our title topic, your network, your net worth, and your business relationships. So certainly will be a great topic for sure. We're sponsored by Convertive, who's the sales and marketing as a service sponsor of Sales Community. And for those that are members of Sales Community, thanks so much. For those that are not, we have a little special going. You can go to salescommunity.com, look in the upper left-hand corner, and you can hit winter free, and you get a free year membership. And if you don't want the free one, you can hit the one above that where you can pay. I strongly recommend doing the free one. So also by way of introduction, so Nour lives in the Atlanta area. And besides work, he is an avid motorcyclist, which is super scary and freaky. The pictures that I've seen. Has recently been tutored by Jen and has become an avid fly fisherman. And I know from being with your family, you're also a very avid skier. And we're trying to figure out when we first met. I think it was at a Sun Partner conference, and I was not one to sit in the front row, but I was there and I took all these notes. I'm like, wow, we got to connect. So since then, which was probably around 11, 12 years ago, you've been a longtime friend and mentor and executive coach. So certainly thanks for your help on my personal and professional journey as well.
My pleasure. It's been great to spend time with you, from ski slopes to Martha's Vineyard and everywhere in between.
Exactly. And his experience spans several areas from relationships to strategy, and also does a exercise called the visualization board that hopefully we'll get time to talk about as well. We've mentioned a little bit, but as a great wife, Wendy, two children, Justice, who's in Athens at University of Georgia, that's just, I think, just down the road from Tuscaloosa somewhere, right? Somewhere there. And also Grayson, daughter, who's in New Zealand right now, and I've had the pleasure to spend time with all of them, and certainly a wonderful family. And back in the early days, you helped me put together these, what we're doing now is Tech Sales Insight and these podcasts. So certainly I'm very thankful for your help, as you're pivotal to get that going, and as my, I guess, partner in crime in the early days. So thank you for that as well.
My pleasure. It's been a great journey. It's been fun. Very kind of you to mention the family, and they all say hello, by the way.
Hello. So maybe we jump in. I'd like to cover, if we can, maybe tell us a little bit about what your actual first job was.
Oh my gosh. Early on, I did a lot of different works. The one that's probably most relevant to this conversation, I was a System 36, System 38 systems engineer at IBM, supporting Profs, which was their ugly green screen email system. This is going back to, mid 80s. And then I got an inside sales job at Computerland selling 286s. and Novell networks and Hayes modems and 5.25-inch floppies. And so those were a couple of the early jobs in the tech space.
I remember we used to sell at a EMC plug compatible memory, and the System 38 was like, I think it was $7,500 per megabyte, if you can believe that, that we would sell. And I remember the models were, I think it was like an 8, 12, 20, 40 or something like that. But I don't know if we ever actually talked about that. And then what about from there? Maybe briefly cover your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah, I've always been passionate about technology. So let's see, IBM, then Silicon Graphics, then my own stint selling animation kind of technology. Then I went to Silicon Graphics at SGI, covered Disney, and was down in Orlando with them, and then software side, business objects. And then Randy, I saw guys twice my age doing the same thing, and I said I wanted more. So I went the consulting route before PwC became PwC, and I went to Emory for the executive MBA program. President of a company, went up to New York, raised a round of funding, and then spent some time with a private equity firm that moved us to several different cities. And then I hung my own shingles in 2002, and it's crazy to believe this is year 21 of the business, really helping CROs, CMOs, look at and really focus on intelligent and profitable growth. A lot of coaching, a lot of speaking, a lot of books, a lot of developing leaders to become the best version of themselves. And that's been the journey. And I've had a front row seat from obviously the internet bubble, 2008 recession, to now more recently, the challenges and opportunities that you see in the market.
Oh, that's great. And I've got a great intro comments from Jen as well, who's your leader for the RevOps practice. We'll talk about later. And also, Avid doesn't do it justice, but she's captain of the U.S. fly fishing team, right?
Yeah, U.S. women's fly fishing team. She's done phenomenal in that space.
So if she can do that, RevOps is a no-brainer. So anyway, she says, as the authority on strategic business relationships, Nour truly embodies the advice he shares and genuinely pushes every leader to become the best version of themselves. I can vouch for that. And working with CROs and CMOs over the past 20 years, he has built a fantastic reputation as a strategic advisor, executive coach, and educator. The Nour Group focuses on enabling intelligent and profitable growth for our global clients through growth strategy advisory work, complemented by RevOps and data intelligence, and supported by other exciting new offerings like learning expeditions, which we'll talk about. I'm proud to call him my business partner and look forward to great success to come for our team in 23 and beyond as we evolve the Nour Group together. So,
wow,
how cool is that? Huh?
That's the nicest thing she said about me. Very, very kind.
Well, I've been writing, so I'll make sure I send it to you. So maybe touch on the Nour Group and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm blessed. As I mentioned, this is year 21 of our business, and with Jen's addition on the RevOps side, a lot of my work comes from either people that hear me speak, that read any of the number of books, or you were kind enough and as our others refer, introduce, whether it's coaching or the growth advisory work or RevOps to other executives. So we don't go in with any preconceived notions. We have a great initial conversation of what's not clicking, what's not working. Through the research, Randy, through over 100 executive conversations, we found that inevitably almost every business is seeking to become a recurring revenue model. Not just the tech SaaS businesses who already are, but think of traditional or maybe more mature industries, mature companies that are going beyond that CapEx transactional sale to now an OpEx offering that encompasses much more value. Well, to do that, you have to build great relationships and you have to earn that trust and you have to earn that business almost every year that renewal comes up. So we build this customer lifecycle maturity model that we kind of now benchmark clients against. How well are you creating awareness? How well do you create engagement and evaluation? You've heard me talk to executives that the relationship really starts when they buy. So how do you then really help create adoption and impact in their business? And only when you create material impact in their business will then they become evangelists, and they'll carry the flag for you and not just renew, but really deepen the relationship. You'll build stronger barriers to entry by other competitors, and they have to feel that they're better off because of you. So in that kind of life cycle journey that looks like an infinity loop, we go in and we assess what's working, what's not working independently, and really help them raise the bar in that maturity through our scorecards, through our benchmarks, and really bring battle tested best practices in that growth strategy. And I got to tell you, I don't know any organization that can cut its way to growth. So I get excited in working with leaders who want to
I've
grow
worked with some that
themselves.
have tried.
You and I both. So I work with leaders who want to become both the best of themselves and how they lead, but also their teams, the leadership teams, their organizations. And it's all intended to fuel enterprise growth and enterprise value.
Yep. Fantastic. And our title topic is your network, your net worth, and business relationship success. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the relationship side and the network side, but how does net worth play in that?
No question. If you think of the critical junctures in our lives, getting that first job, getting a bigger job, managing a team, maybe your first P&L, maybe running a functional group or a business unit. A lot of CROs I know are ripe to become COOs or CEOs, that next big leap in your realm of responsibilities. Every one of these that impacts your personal and professional growth, as well as the economic model in terms of your compensation, I would submit is going to come through a few, but really strategic relationships. These are relationships that you work with at EMC that, again, I got to tell you, you're the poster executive of what I convey of nurturing those over time, because their careers evolve and they become, Peter McKay, and they become Peter Bell, and they become some of the guests you've had that likewise have been incredibly successful. And in turn, I remember Dave Donatelli at HP that I think worked for you. And then at HP, he became kind of your executive. Those relationships revolve and evolve, and they directly contribute to our happiness, to our well-being, as well as our financial success in many ways.
No, that's great. And but by the way, I don't know if you felt a tremor a couple of weeks ago, but Dave's actually on LinkedIn finally.
I had to pick myself off the floor of, after all these years, it's good to see him there.
Yeah. And then I know while you're, kind of name dropping some of the great execs you've worked with, I know Bill Hogan has also used you really well at some of the executive offsites, and kind of for a lot of that kind of team chemistry and focus and strategy and what are we going to do to execute and things like that as well, right?
I'm a huge Bill Hogan fan. I mean, again, I look for, when I meet executives, do they just talk about some of these things or do they live it? And I got to tell you, I was blessed to speak at an event with General McChrystal, Stanley McChrystal, and he talked about plywood leadership. And what he meant was, in theaters, they use plywood to build these structures. And he was talking about the adaptability and agility of it. Executives like Bill Hogan, at Beyond Identity Now, live it. They live relationships. It exudes, through everything they do. And it's not a facade. It's not a front. It's not a pretend. It's who they are. And what you see with Bill is what you get. And he again, I love that more recently he's brought some of the executives that he worked with in previous roles into the company, because again, those are relationships that he can count on, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's great. So moving on. So you had curve benders, you had the original relationship economics. That was fantastic. That I'm a total disciple of. And it's, I'd argue it's a timeless classic. So why and how did you do the third edition?
Yeah. So you're kind. Wiley reached out. We've done well with the original relationship economics that actually came out in 2008. I wrote the second edition, the paperback, in 12 with probably about 40% new content. And then in conversation with Wiley, they said, listen, this global pandemic has obviously had an impact on business relationships. What do you think? And would you be interested in a completely rewrite? And that's exactly what I did. So it started during the pandemic. I interviewed over 100 executives, learned a lot of insights about how they were able to maneuver the constant uncertainty through their relationships. I practiced a lot of that myself. And then really thinking a lot about post-pandemic growth strategies, both, again, as an individual, as a team, as an organization, as well as, the advent of technology. You and I see a lot of AI and ML-based platforms, and the intent is to engage and influence and really nurture relationships. So I thought several of these topics were important enough to now incorporate. And just like our business relationships evolve, so have the approaches and how to be really efficient, effective, impactful in nurturing them. Hence the new edition with the green cover.
Oh, that's awesome. And then I don't know if Tucker has it teed up, but there's probably a link that he can get up while we're talking about it as well, right?
Yeah, there's I'm obviously we're trying to create awareness for it, and a lot of good discussions around it, and I can share a link with Tucker as well to post of folks who can get it from anywhere. You can order from your retailers, and we'll include a couple of great nuggets, new bonus material in there as well.
Awesome. And if anybody, I guess, wants a Reader's Digest version in my book, your go-to sales advisor, you have on, let's see, what are we like? Page 53, Relationship Economics. And I think it really sums it up nicely in terms of why it's valuable. You talk about gratitude, reciprocity, and paying it forward. So that, those things really have nothing to do with selfish. Why is it good for me? It's all about why is it good for you or whoever I'm working with, right?
It's exactly right. And Randy, I've always believed that most of what we all need to know about business relationships, believe it or not, we learn in kindergarten, right? We were taught to share. We were taught to be nice to other people. We were taught to, and yet as we kind of mature through our education and early career, we absorb kind of the behaviors that we see in other leaders. And you start to see silos, and you start to see fiefdoms, and you start to see, functional kind of, this is our sandbox, don't mess with this, and this is our office or geography, we don't want to do what they're doing. And that's not really conducive to building and nurturing collaborative relationships. The other thing that I've always really been an advocate of is we got to stop calling these things soft skills, because we've quantifiably proven that relationships can accelerate go-to-market. Relationships can accelerate you identifying and recruiting exceptional talent. Relationships can dramatically shorten ramp-up time and time to cash. So it is quantifiable, it's essential, and still it is not taught in many organizations. And we believe it can be a teachable skill. So becoming stronger advocates of people building relationships means you got to teach it, you got to reinforce it, as a leader, you got to model it, but you also have to measure it. And ideally you compensate for it. If you do those things, it becomes a lot more impactful in the organization.
Yeah, well, that's you're making a big leap that you're assuming that organizations these days actually do performance managing and they actually do.
That is correct. That is a big assumption on my part, that great managers and great leaders are always coaching and always looking for coaching moments, looking for opportunities to. And I got to tell you, you probably have seen the same thing. The last 3 years, with all of us having to adapt to different ways of working, that's become increasingly more difficult because we're not down the hallway and we're not seeing each other. And I do believe increasingly we are going to go back to the office and interact more. But we've missed that opportunity. It's very difficult to build and sustain great cultures remotely. So you've got to find reasons, you got to find opportunities to reconnect, key members of the team, and really show them the power of that connection and that collaboration.
Yeah. Well, you would think it's almost like you would think because of virtual and everything else, leaders would oversteer around that kind of coaching and managing and giving and getting feedback. It seems like the opposite has happened. Everybody's kind of run for the hills. Oh, I don't want to say, I don't want to offend somebody. But yeah, to me, it's just crazy. What do you say?
Yeah, it's a real missed opportunity. And again, think about it. We somehow we've allowed social distancing to become relational isolation, right? And we again that I was talking to another great dad who said, my kid is on his third job and he's never gone into an office. So every job he's had so far has been remote. And what he's missing out on are the camaraderie and the interactions and
Yeah.
all of those opportunities to learn and absorb. And by the way, there's some great leaders that model fantastic relationship building behaviors that this next generation, those that are certainly in the spring and summer of their careers, are not able to see, able to pick up on, because we're not going on sales calls and going to see people and bringing the next generation into meetings. And again, it's a real missed opportunity to develop the next generation.
Crazy. So thanks to Rick and Phil for leading off the questions. So Tucker, maybe we can pull up Rick's. So for those watching, feel free to comment or ask any questions. Several, I'm sure, are part of the Nour fan club, as am I and Phil and Rick. Rick asks, thank you, Nour. Can't wait to read your new book. I've read both Curve Benders and Co-Create. Speaking of AI and ML, what role do you believe these technologies should play in business relationships?
Rick, good to see you. Thanks for the kind question. Yeah, I got to tell you, I've been a huge advocate of technology and the business impact of technology for as long as I can remember. Rick, what AI and ML cannot do is replace you and I meeting in person and shaking hands and looking each other in the eye. And you've heard me say, and Randy, again, that you live this motto. I've always believed this. There's a very simple 4-step process of like me, know me, trust me, pay me. It works in that sequence. And if you don't create opportunities, if Johnny Carson used to say there's a certain likability factor for all of us. If you don't allow people to get to know you, the real you, and don't give them a chance to, likewise, get to know them, invest in getting to know them, you should have no expectations of the awareness and the engagement and certainly the payday that is the capitalizing part of that. So AI and ML can certainly create awareness. I think it can create, helping buyers, particularly if we're talking about buyers, in their next step in their journey. But you need to be able to figure out when's the right time to infuse a real human being. And that person better be intelligent enough that I don't have to repeat myself. They got to add value. It can't be just let me share information. I can get that from a lot of other places. You really do need to go back to how do we nurture real, authentic relationships so we demonstrate a vested interest in their success. And then they're much more likely to believe us and believe in us and want to work with us. So I love AI and ML in reducing some of the labor intensity. I love AI and ML in discerning who are the right profiles for us to kind of interact with. I love AI and ML recommending kind of next steps and the right content in their, for that buyer's consumption in their buying journey. It does not replace the human interaction. And that interaction needs to be value-based and it needs to be authentic.
Yeah, I think one of the best tech sales examples is somebody says, "Oh, I have a relationship," but they had a relationship with whatever executives or people they're selling to or customers because they had that business card that said the Cisco, the IBM, the EMC, the NetApp, the whoever. Then all of a sudden they go to some other smaller company. Geez, Randy, they're not seeing me. I know them. I knew them. We're really you have a relationship. Yes. Well, tell me about their relationship. It was not a relationship at all. And I think that's usually the true test. And then just to give credit, the Know Me, Like Me, Trust Me, the original of that was Walter Brown, rest in peace, who's early sales consultant at EMC, who Ken Doherty, Brian Bell, myself, several others are totally disciples of as well. But I think that really just, totally rings true. And I think the umbrella around the relationship side is, okay, so when things are tough, are you there for the customer? If it's the middle of the night, are you there? Are you helping? Can they count on you? And that's probably the best thing you can do to build relationships.
Unequivocally, yes. I'm going to go one step further. If you even go earlier in the process, Randy, I've heard this from you of reference checking of a sales rep, of any employee. And let's say you're hiring them in Atlanta, where I live. I love the fact that you ask them, well, who do you know? Like who's been a past client, or who would vouch for you, or who do you have a relationship with? And if they struggle in answering that, or if you talk to that person, they're like, yeah, that person sold me something transactionally years ago, I haven't talked to them since, it should highlight for you that this person really isn't or isn't very relationship centric. Because if you believe in this notion that beyond your educational foundation, beyond your professional pedigree, your portfolio of relationships is your single biggest asset, you would nurture that. And you would nurture that on a daily basis. And those who don't will do it at their own peril, because people change jobs, they change industries, they move. And if your outlook or if your contacts are as outdated as most people's are, it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, totally. For our recruiting business, top talent recruiting, that's one of our advantages, that we'll say, early in the process, not at the back end, we'll figure out, how do we connect the dots? And as well as that person may know somebody, I'm comfortable, I know them just as well, that they're going to give me the straight scoop. And it's never an in between. It's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And I'm always amazed, especially by first and second line, sales folks, that if you say, okay, whatever, Delta, oh, so to Delta, really? Okay, so Rahul Samant, who's I think so the CIO. Okay, do you know him or his people? Well, let me I'll just ask him. Well, I don't know. Okay, well, so you don't know Delta, or just like crazy. Like, okay, I've never lived in Atlanta, but at least there's a couple, accounts that I know you're supposedly selling to. How is it that you've not nurtured it? So anyway,
and one other quick point on that. If you notice, you didn't ask them about the product they sold, right? You asked about the relationship.
Right.
And I keep reiterating to people, relationships are not between logos or buildings. They're always between individuals. And if I call so-and-so and ask them, tell me about Randy Seidel, right? What are they going to say? And if you don't know, that's a blind spot. So how proactively are you nurturing and sustaining your most valuable asset, which is your relationships?
Yeah, totally. And it gets lost. We're going back and forth here, but especially I think the younger generation, and especially with Zoom and everything. Well, you can't build relationships. Yes, you can, right? So, maybe that's a good question for you. So, if you can't do face to face, what would be some suggestions of how people can build relationships, especially if they're, I'll say, like a net new, kind of cold calling situation, right?
Sure. There's a reason the first chapter is the top 10 reasons why most networking doesn't work. And I've also written in LinkedIn about how frighteningly and woefully underprepared some people are when it comes to relationships. So a quick answer is, for your audience, think about every relationship almost as a theater act. There's a before, during, and after. The level of prep you do before every interaction. I don't care if it's 5 minutes or 15 minutes before that Zoom meeting. Really try to understand, really try to do your due diligence on I start macro to micro, industry, company, this individual, their background, they're on LinkedIn, where they come from, if they've ever been a guest somewhere, if they've been quoted in an article. Do your due diligence on the person. And what happens is, sociologists call this being ambient aware. The more knowledgeable you become about that person, the more proactively you can nurture, you can manage that relationship. So if I have a Zoom meeting with a prospect, I am not just showing up. And I swear to you, it's amazing how many people do this. What do you do? Or they don't know half I love I might be old school posts. They don't know half the stuff that they should know before that call. So we got to do a better job on the prep. During, you got to be in the moment. You gotta, I've always believed, convey your credibility to the questions you ask, not necessarily the solutions you provide. This isn't about you. It's about how they would be better off because of you. You cannot learn if you're talking. So I love, Zoom meetings where I'm asking the questions and I'm gaining a lot of insights, but it also can't come across as an inquisition. So
Right.
you need to have not, I don't like necessarily elevator pitches, but you need to have similarly succinct value proposition. You need to have succinct war stories that are relevant that you can share. You need to have a next step of here's not how to sell them, but how to kind of help them in their journey. And you've heard me say it's a lot easier to give a hand than have your hand out. So if you help them buy, if you help them solve that problem, if you help them, even if you're not the solution, help them, connect them to someone else who can help them. That's how you demonstrate. You cannot just say this stuff. You got to demonstrate that you have a vested interest in their success. And then the after is the follow through, which is a process, not a transactional follow up. You do that and you can make virtual interactions certainly much more impactful than I think many are today.
Absolutely. So Rick, thanks for the question. A lot of good follow-ups there. So from Phil Walton, hey Phil, we have Dave Nour is absolutely the best. Violent agreement. How do
Thank you.
relationships in the building of those relationships change or need to be modified in different geographies around the world? And we don't care about Iran, so maybe talk about some other geographies.
Phil, thank you for the kind comment. That's very nice of you to say. Unequivocally, geographies come into play. I mean, as close to home as Northeast and the Southeast, as they do Midwest, and then you start to go abroad. And for the audience, if you don't know this, I'm originally from Iran. I wrote in the book, I didn't get it then, but I certainly get it now that 5 or 6 years old, walking through the bazaars of Iran with my dad, he didn't just have a list of things mom wanted or, the things he needed around the house. Dad literally made a relationship list. And we went around and he visited with over a cup of tea or, sitting in their shops or going to the office and visiting them, people that he wanted to make sure we visited with, whether it was a plumber or a politician. So I learned at a very young age that you have to be intentional about that. I've lived abroad, I've worked abroad. The rest of the world, and Randy, if your audience doesn't hear anything else, this would be, I think, really useful. The rest of the world builds relationships first from which they do business. Regrettably, many of us as Americans, or certainly Westerners, are so hell-bent on that deal or that project or that initiative or that transaction that if and only if that goes well, then we'll think about asking about their spouses or significant others and their kids and where they go on vacation and their holiday plans. So you got to think about relationships as the arrowhead and lead with that, not the feathers at the tail end of the arrow. So Phil, you and I have seen this where we go into situations and the people who don't look like us, sound like us, or come from our backgrounds are borderline offended because we tend to jump right into the transaction without demonstrating authentically any empathy for them, for what they've gone through, for what they are going through. And by the way, this is as relevant inside an organization as it is external to it. One of the misperceptions about relationships that is purely external. Customers, vendors, investors, board members, partners, channel partners, everybody outside. I would submit your intra-company relationships are as critical. So if you have an office in anywhere near Ukraine these days, you would have to be thick as a brick to jump right into the transactional and not really think about, not really focus on the transformational and really bring how they're doing, what they're doing, what's happening with them into the mix. So those are just a couple ideas on really thinking about how to proactively nurture those relationships that are outside of those environments.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. And I'm just wondering from a younger generational thing, you always have to watch what we say. But if you think about, okay, they can do dating online, they can do all this texting and everything else. just the gift of gab and just talking. And you call it a rap maybe, but kind of in the social setting, that's definitely decreased compared to when we were in our 20s or 30s. So I wonder how much of that is rubbing off then to the work environment, where it's a hard, awkward thing where it should just come naturally.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to I posted. So we've been interviewing. You'd love this. We've been interviewing SDRs and BDRs to add to our team. And Randy, I've narrowed 50 down to about 25. Interviewed about 25, and I wrote a LinkedIn post of how, again, woefully underprepared they were in how they showed up and their ability to have an intelligent conversation and engage and influence and pretend like you care, pretend that you've done your homework and you want to be there. And it is frightening if we don't elevate our coaching, our mentoring, our modeling of these relationship behaviors. It's not just for the next generation. Collectively, when we see it, I think it's gonna bite us in a big way.
Yeah, crazy. Out of curiosity, for your SDRs, do they have to live in Atlanta?
They do not. We're 100% again remote as a company, and I'm looking, and I've reverted to finding the attitude, the things that are unteachable, right? The work ethic, the scrappiness, the hustle. I can teach them our business, but it's very difficult to teach someone to get up and be self kind of driven and inspired to go do great things. But I can teach them our business and everything else that we do.
Oh, great. I actually talked to young woman 2 days ago who recently graduated from Vanderbilt, lacrosse player. I don't remember Bob Singh saying from Sun, his daughter Kelly's great career. I'm kind of mentoring with her, something that she vouches for. So I will definitely refer her over to you.
That would be great. Welcome that.
Definitely impressed me. So Rick and Phil, thanks for the questions. So any others watching along or listening along, feel free to make any comments or ask any questions. Again, we've got David Nour, who's CEO of the Nour Group, and just a wealth of knowledge on a whole bunch of topics. So talking about relationships in the workplace, we're talking before, and McKinsey and Gallup have some interesting data about how relationships in the workplace can actually help with retention.
Yeah, it's great to see after 20 years of carrying this flag, the more marquee and credible sources talk more about this topic. McKinsey put out a fabulous research that showed talent retention. So if you want to retain your best talent, the not just more, but the deeper relationships they build will actually keep them from taking calls from recruiters and looking into potentially leaving the company for other opportunities, because they feel that sense of connection to hopefully their job, but certainly others. And they make friends at work, and they don't want to let those friends down. They don't want to let those friends go. Similarly, Gallup, in their workplace state of the global workplace, mentioned happiness. So employees who are happy, employees that are it reduces the burnout that we all know about and we've certainly seen, but it also creates this endearing connection to the organization, because I feel like they're more than just colleagues, they're friends, and they've got my back. And they use a lot of layman's terms that I think we can all relate to. But you know what? If I'm out sick or if I need to go take care of loved ones, I know my team's got that covered. So all of these point to the breadth and some depth of the relationships that people build as huge enablers of attracting and retaining exceptional talent.
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, you would think it's just common sense, but yeah, and it's also crazy, right? When we were growing up, if you left the company, before 5 years or something wrong with you, now everybody can jump year to year, and that's perfectly acceptable.
U.S. labor statistics: 14 jobs by the time someone is 34 years old.
Wow. You used to be maybe 14 jobs in the same company, but Yeah.
Right. And you're right. We would frown on that. The other thing that I'm talking to a lot of executives right now, increasingly the side hustles are picking up, right? Some leaders have the mindset of, well, we're going to write into their employment contract that they're not allowed to do a side hustle. I'm not sure that's the right approach. What I'm asking you is, what if that side hustle was inside your company?
Right.
So Susan, who happens to be one of your sales reps, happens to be a fantastic chef, right? And she loves cooking and she does catering on the side. Why can't she cater the next sales meeting? Right? So are there opportunities, again, without conflict of interest where it makes sense, but it goes back to really embracing the whole employee and really understanding what makes them tick, what makes them excited about kind of what they're doing. How do we really help them bring more of themselves into the work environment? The other stat that I got to tell you that's going to make you cringe about this whole going back to the office, and it comes in with this idea of hybrid relationships. Again, another Gallup survey. The number one reason those under 30 years of age do not want to go back into an office during the pandemic, Randy, you're going to cringe. They got a dog and they don't want to leave that dog home alone. Now, you and I, or old school thinking could be, well, you know what? Go put him in a doggy daycare. But they feel a sense of responsibility to this pet that was with them during, some
Yeah.
difficult times. And in 2023, it will be short-sighted for leaders not to understand that and figure out that that person is at their best when they're content, when they're happy, when they're going to do their best work, including prospecting, including engaging customers. So how do we work in this work from everywhere, WFX world, than we have in the past of you got to be in the office from sunrise to sunset every day?
Yeah, I don't know if I would be allowed to post it. I might be old school, but I might call it WTF. That's just crazy. So, dissecting relationships more as you do so well. You talk about three types of relationships: personal, functional, and strategic. Can you talk about those?
Sure. So personal relationships, it's golf buddies, it's poker friends, it's grad school, or people that are very discretionary. We pick them. We're not sure their relevance in our professional lives, but we love hanging out with these people. So that's fairly easy. That's fairly straightforward. Most people have a lot of those. Functional relationships are people we work with. Let's be honest, people they're not discretionary. You don't necessarily choose who you work with or who your customers or partners may be. They're still safe because of the context of our work together. But a lot of times you may not be that excited about extending your personal life with these folks. Again, most people I meet have plenty of the first two. They're really missing out on the third one, which are your strategic relationships. These are the relationships beyond coaches, beyond mentors, beyond great bosses. They see the best version of you. They push you to constantly raise the bar on who you are, how you show up, not just how you perform, but the human being that you become, and the manager and the leader that you become. So Randy, if you think about your background, beyond learning how to sell at EMC, I've heard you talk about leaders that you had that taught you how to be a servant leader, or leaders you had who taught you how to be a relationship investor. Those are those strategic relationships that elevate us, that raise the bar on us. And those are the ones that we really want to nurture. We need to nurture, and not enough people I meet truly have those strategic relationships.
Yeah, and I'd throw in there's a lot of buzzwords you can throw in, but I think just being authentic, and I think treating people how you want to be treated, and I'd always say the pyramid's upside down. I work, I may have whatever 4 or 5 levels between me and an individual contributor, but I work for whoever that individual contributor is, and if you can do that, then a lot of great things come out of it, as opposed to so these people that are just up in the ivory tower and don't get in the streets and don't build the relationships and don't do the right things.
And regrettably, particularly not just in the tech sector, but tenure tends to disconnect a lot of leaders from that front row. So you've been there. You've been a rep. You've been a district manager. You've been a regional manager. You've been a VP, area VP. You've been a VP of sales. You've earned that chief revenue officer role today. That should not keep you from getting, on a plane and going to that remote rep and going on sales. I don't know about you. I still love, years later, I still love sales calls, and I still love to,
Sales
go out
calls,
with
baby.
those, go out with reps, go out with, go out to the channels, go out and get this,
Yeah.
what the profession we've chosen is not a spectator sport. It's not a, looking at a bunch of spreadsheets from, headquarters and telling that guy in Phoenix or that person in Scottsdale or, Dallas, get on a plane and go see them, go spend time with them. And a lot of leaders, unfortunately, have gotten away from that frontline
Yeah.
opportunity.
And guess what? Because all this Zoom and COVID crap, customers are just prospectors starve for that FaceTime, right? They want to get out of the house. They want to go meet for coffee or drink or lunch or dinner, whatever. There's no time easier than now to get the face-to-face time, because it used to be, oh, I'm booked. I don't have dinners, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they grew up, for those that are senior that you're trying to sell to, that have been around working for, 20 plus years, they're used to going out. They're used to, whether you want to call it entertain or not, but that relationship building out of the office, there's no time better than now to do that, right?
I'm doing a sales kickoff keynote on this relationship economics for a client, and their head of global sales said, our sales reps and our customers have all become way too accustomed to Zoom.
Yeah. Oh, it's
So
easy. It's an easy button.
It's
Oh,
right. So what I really want the audience to hear from you is to get out of their offices. And there's still some clients, some companies that don't allow visitors in their buildings. That's okay. Meet, as you said, meet them for coffee, meet them for lunch, meet them for dinner, go back out to sporting events.
oh yeah.
But that ability to reconnect and re-engage, how do you shake hands through Zoom? How do you look someone in the eye? I mean, is the video stuck? Like, did my video just go out, or is there somebody there? So it's imperative that we do not forget that innate need for human touch. We have that need for
Yeah.
real connections, and that's who people are going to buy from.
And it comes back to inspecting, right? I mean, you'd say, okay, how many sales calls, what's face-to-face, what's Zoom? And now some leaders like, oh, I don't know if I can do that or not. I mean, that's crap, right? You got to have, here's the expectations, here's the behaviors that we want, here's what a player is if you want, there's that, and a lot of other things that you have to do. And then now you got, I was talking to Mark Stevenson yesterday, who, a great CRO, and he said he uses Gong because he can go for a lot of great things, but the context of this, to actually go back, go and look at, people's calendars, and he can actually, for the ones that are Zoom, he knows they're Zoom because they're, being recorded. And then the ones that are, face to face, saying, okay, really, what's going on? How much time are they, spending selling? How much time are they spending face to face? Crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it is a fantastic learning, growth, coaching opportunity to, we got 3 years of this global pandemic to make up for. So I'm packing my calendar with, I know you're thinking, I don't need more coffee meetings, lunch meetings. I'm going back out to events. I'm going back out to meet people, and it's people you haven't seen in several years now. So really immersing yourself in those in-person visits, I think, would go a long way in getting all of us back to reconnecting on a real, authentic level.
Yeah, awesome. So we have a great question from Tim. So full disclosure, he's a key executive at Convertive, and is active in the RevOps space, as are you, but have a lot of great customers where they've really kind of helped figure out how can they best leverage that sales tech stack platform, help best leverage the data that's there. So as a follow-up, when I mentioned the prep, we definitely got to get you guys to connect, and Jen. But anyway, Tim says, great episode, and relationship economics is currently shipping to my house. All right, you got a plus
There's one copy. There's one copy.
There you go. All right. Looking forward to reading. Curious to hear more about how you got into offering RevOps consulting. That I do as a follow-on, maybe talk about what you actually do there with Jen.
Sure. So Tim, thank you again for the purchase. Appreciate that you find the book. Yeah. So I got to tell you, we became a Salesforce kind of, I've been using Salesforce for a whole bunch of years, our CRM, and, had a sharp young woman that went and got, we got certified as, we would go and implement and integrate and install and really figure out Salesforce for a number of clients. And we did that probably 10 years ago. So the tech stack has always been part of the conversation. Increasingly, what we found is that a lot of our clients were using less than 10% of what these truly enterprise platforms are capable of. Number one. Number two, we found disparate data sources and lack of real seamless integration between them, just in conversations. Number three, Jen was director of kind of RevOps for one of my client companies. She was leaving. And I said, would you be open to come and working with me and doing this together? Because I was having those conversations with leaders and didn't really have a solution. So she joined us about 18 months ago. Couldn't be more proud of the work that she's doing with some fantastic clients. And what we've established is now is a baseline audit. And within 30 days, we go in. I don't want to be a battalion. We're a SEAL Team 6. Get in. We quickly we get admin privileges. We look at what the client company is doing. And we've identified frightening kind of missteps. Good people, good intentions. Somebody brought it in. They're no longer with the firm. Other people don't know what to do with it. Imagine 1 million records in a Salesforce instance, whereas 600,000 of them had not been touched in the past 18 months. Imagine a smaller company with 600 C-suite leads that they paid for, and think of the cost to get those that had never been contacted. Imagine Fortune 50 companies who had downloaded the free version of your tool or platform or technology that nobody had bothered to go and follow up with. So it's not just the tech stack, it's processes, it's capabilities, and it is unequivocally a highly integrated, tightly integrated tech stack. And that's a lot of the work that we're doing. So if you're typically an A and B round, we offer RevOps as an outsourced service where we do the whole thing for you. More mature or later stage companies, we become an extension of their team. For one client, we own just their Salesforce. For another client, we're using Tableau and doing a lot of data analysis from disparate sources. So that's how we got into it. And it's been, Jen and her team have done a phenomenal job. And I'm really excited about, proactively growing that practice for us and partnering with others. Randy speaks highly of you guys and would love to learn more about what you're doing.
Definitely. So thanks for that, Tim. And from John Carroll, we have, you both look great and energized for the new year. Randy, keep rocking the beard. So complete sidebar. My wife, Janet, wanted me to shave the beard. It was big and scruffy. And then she said jokingly, hey, why don't you post it on LinkedIn and see what they say? I'm like, that's a great idea. So Tucker helped me. And I think we're just about 50,000 views, and we had some hilarious comments there. But anyway, John goes on to say, Nour, I think I'm going to auto renew for any book you publish. Make sure. So you got 2 out of this.
2 copies.
Regarding the discussion, whatever business you are in, relationship building, truly interpersonal relationships, which are necessary for any high-end sale, is making a comeback. Lots of events and travel in my Q1 itinerary. So, John, that's great. And I'd say lead by example. Nour?
Yeah, just a quick comment for the audience. John Carroll is the founder and CEO of Service Council. And what Randy does for the tech sales community, John's doing for global service organizations. And kudos to him. He also exudes that power of relationships. I think he started Service Council as a LinkedIn group. And one of the members comes in and says, I have a problem, or can you help me connect with so-and-so? And the light bulb went off. This really is a community. And this community really would, greatly value connecting them. So they put on a fantastic executive symposium in September in Chicago. If you're in customer service, field service, customer experience, you got to check out Service Council. And it's also a good reminder, Randy, for your audience. I've always believed people fundamentally gather for 2 reasons: content and community. What can I learn that I wouldn't have access to otherwise? And who else will be there? Who else can I meet? Who else can I get to know? Who else can I build a relationship with that I wouldn't otherwise? And that's another fantastic opportunity for every member of the sales community, for every member that's watching or listening. Get out of the home office, get out of the virtual world, and start to re-engage folks. I speak 50, 60 times a year. I did this before the pandemic. I'm picking it back up this year. I attend at least one event a quarter where I have no responsibility whatsoever, and I'm sitting in the audience consuming great content, great sessions, meeting great people, and you feel richer for it. You feel your life is richer because of it.
That's great. John, great to hear you. And it was great meeting you. Nour had an awesome retreat back, I guess it was in the fall. And you're going to be doing more of those, which I think will be fantastic for everybody. So maybe 3 questions here, and maybe we'll be shorter with the answers. And I won't chime in, but I think the audience would love it. So talk about strategic relationship planning.
Any outcome that's critical to your success, get a lot more intentional about the relationships you need, the relationships you have. How do you connect the dots with value add? So in the book, there's literally a blueprint on how to leverage relationships much more strategically to get to your desired outcomes.
Awesome. And we have here from Terry. Good to see you, Terry. Book ordered. Thanks
There's
for
3. I'm up to 3 copies. 3.
Thanks for a great update refresher on the importance of relationship development. I continue to leverage the key learnings from Nour and Randy that started many years ago.
Very kind. Very kind, Terry. Thank you.
And Terry's a sidebar. Let me know the issue that we're working on before. Let me know if that is set or not. I was meaning to get to you, so kill 2 birds here. What about corporate relationship deficit disorder?
Unfortunately, as I said earlier, not prioritized, not invested in, not taught, not part of many organizations' recruiting, metrics, compensation. We often ask for A and we measure and compensate B. Is there any surprise that people are not investing in the relationships that you need? So, and I had a chance to meet Jim Collins of Good to Great fame. He often talks about, we should ask more often the who questions. Whenever we're faced with a challenge or opportunity, we often think about what should we do and how should we do it. We don't ask enough who questions. I'm going to go one step further. Who do we need? Who do we know? How do we collectively leverage the organization-wide relationships to streamline our access to and opportunities with relationships we need to succeed?
Totally. And, Terry's renowned channel leader, and I think he's always kind of top, either top 1 or top few for a channel chief of the year. But, in that channel business, it's, I want to say it's all about relationships, but that's, probably number 1. And, Terry just does a fantastic job with that. And I know is a great leader for others that follow it as well. So next question, what about the 2 a.m. concept?
I love that one. So for the audience, the notion is not all relationships are created equal. You based on depth and relevancy. Some people much better. You have a deeper relationship with them than others. So I looked for any kind of a measure that helped me track that. I couldn't find one, so I built one. It's called the Relationship Value Pyramid. There's 4 levels of depth and relevance. The very pinnacle of the most valuable relationships you have, my supposition is you really could call them 2 a.m. and the first question would be, are you okay? Hopefully you've nurtured the relationship with these people where if you needed $25,000 and money was not an object, they would write you a check or Venmo you this afternoon. So it's about your most valuable relationships that you cannot nurture enough, you can't invest enough, and you certainly don't want to do anything to dilute the credibility, dilute the repute, dilute the value with those individuals. But I call those your 2 a.m. relationships.
Awesome.
And you have a story around this.
I do.
Yeah. So you've got a group of people that you've known for years and you work with in an amazing way, and you guys have invested together, you're on boards together, you see each other on vacations, your spouses know each other. I would say many of those are 2 a.m. Would you agree?
True. Yes. Or they're 2 a.m. stories because we happen to be still awake together. But it's one of the good things I like about being in Naples. It's kind of like 10 p.m. everything shuts down, so it's you kind of self-imposed. But
There you go.
anyway, so we also have, maybe as a final question, for those that are impacted by kind of recent layoffs. You've already talked a lot about kind of how you do your homework and check LinkedIn and kind of things like that. What other suggestions or feedback would you have?
Yeah, I'm going to give them the same thing I did at the beginning of the pandemic. Make a list of your top 100 business relationships and reach out to them and find out how you can be an asset, how you can help them. One of the fundamental laws of business relationships is gratitude and then reciprocity. So if you invest in those relationships, even though you're looking for the job, if you ask, how you doing? What are you doing? Tell me about your priorities this new year. How can I be an asset? How can I help? At some point, they should say thank you and ask you, what can I do to help you? Glad you asked. I'm exploring my next opportunity. Language is really powerful. You don't want to sound like you're desperate. I'm exploring my next opportunity. Would you be open to me running some ideas by you? Here's what I'm after. Here's what I'm thinking. What do you think? So your next job is not going to come from an ad. It's going to come more than likely from a relationship. You got to get intentional about investing in those relationships, and the reciprocity becomes they help you and they walk you into that next CRO or CMO that you want to work for.
Awesome. And I'll steal a couple snippets from you from way back. But if you're interviewing or you're doing sales calls or anything, early is on time and on time is late, which again I think gets lost with the current generation. And then conveying your interest and value through questions. So instead of bragging or touting about kind of who you are or what you are, or that you did the research, through intelligent questions, maybe pithy, you would say, really impress them, right? And there's a whole laundry list of other things, but I know you'd be in a violent agreement. Another one that I still work on, especially the podcast, is the ums and ahs, kind of things like that, right? So you always, you come across very sharp and crisp, but that's always something I'm always trying to improve on myself.
Absolute agreement. All those are great reminders. And I want to just remind your audience, it's amazing how often we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. And common sense isn't often common practice. So a lot of what we've shared, you may know, how proactively are you doing them?
Oh, that's great. So what about a final, when we did this before, we'd always ask if there's any PG Randy story.
Oh, are you kidding? One of my favorites was so my family and I were vacationing in Martha's Vineyard. Your son was playing on the summer league, and we met up with a mutual client and friend that you referred to me 10 plus years ago, an executive that I coached. And we all went to a minor league baseball game at Martha's Vineyard and had hot dogs and popcorn. And it was one of the highlights of that trip. We took a group picture, and the mascot of the team is the Sharks. And I've got it framed on my bookshelf right here to remind me of the incredible value of relationships beyond any work that we do together.
Awesome. And I think the same trip, we also connected with Colin Mahoney, who was kind enough to take us out on his boat. So
didn't catch anything, but the boat ride was fabulous.
There you go. I'm sure he probably dropped us off, and then he went and got some. But anyway, Nour, as always, you've been fantastic. So for those that don't have it, relationship economics, and I guess we're going to pop in the link, or you get the link after, something like that. But certainly fantastic, whether you're doing sales kickoffs, you want to do individual coaching in terms of how can you move up in the C-suite. If you've got kind of team or executive retreats that you want to do. Also, he's building with Jen a great retreat center. at a fantastic facility, highlighted with some awesome fly fishing by Jen, amongst some other things. So, all right, looks like we have the book link there. So anyway, Nour, thank you. We have next week, episode number 109, Wendy Kuhn, who's the author of a new book called Strategy to Reality. And I met her through Rick. So Rick, thanks for that. But Nour, can't thank you enough. Thanks.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Nour, and Tucker, as always, thanks for your help behind the scenes. Have a great